Hey, everybody, welcome to episode 462 of What Drives Us. Yes, it's a show. It's the thing we do.
462.
What did I do?
462. I mean, that's a heck of a lot of episodes, guys.
It sure is.
I have a problem. I admit it. I mean, it's
The
my
first
fault.
step is admitting you have a problem.
Exactly. The first step is admitting I have a problem. The second step is thanking Georgia McKenzie and Kacey Green for stepping up last week and hosting what I hope was an amazing show. I'm sure it was, and I look forward to watching it tonight after the show on my 55-inch 4K TV. So
wow.
Oh, excuse you.
No one should watch this on that kind of device.
Is that bad? I actually, just looking forward to seeing all you guys life size, because you're on the computer and you're like little Lego people. So there's that. Hey, thanks. Welcome to What Drives Us for August 3rd, 2022. My name is Russell Frost. I think I'm the host. I don't know. I just show up once in a while.
It could be anybody, honestly.
Yeah. And as we proved last week, it could be anyone. No insult at all to Georgia and Kacey, who stepped up, and everybody else who was there. So thanks.
Yeah, it would have been boring with just the two of us.
I don't know. I'd be interested in hearing what you guys had to say. I don't know. So let's introduce the panel and get this show on the road. Wow. I don't have a baby feeding start. So our friend in the Mid-Atlantic region, Mr. Kacey Green.
And co-host.
Just sweating over here. Eventually the air will cool down and it'll be cool. My batteries are full.
Well, that's good.
Nice.
On solar, yeah.
I would complain about the heat, but there's almost always one person here who's hotter than where I am. So I have to be careful with that. And her name is Georgia McKenzie.
Well, thank you.
You're
I
taking
didn't
many
know
of
I
them.
was that hot. So, it's only 99 degrees up here in Northern California, because when we say Northern California, I think that just means we're closer to the sun.
It shouldn't work that way. What weird.
Weird how that works. But yeah, welcome to the show, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. And our friend in the Great White North, where it is undoubtedly cool and beautiful, balmy summer in Canada, Mr. Mark Coughlin.
We're getting some much needed rain today, so we're quite happy that we're getting rain for an afternoon or an evening is a big plus in the middle of August, middle of summer. So we're quite happy today.
Absolutely. Well, we have this monsoony thing that goes on here, except every day the clouds pile up on the mountains and we see them, big thunderstorm clouds. It looks really impressive, but they never get across the mountains. So we stand here with our empty glasses going, please, could we have some? No, you cannot.
You need to go out there and encourage them, Russell. You got to speak encouraging words. Come on, little clouds. You can do this.
What they want you to do is get a desalination plant.
That would have meant that we thought about it, 30 years ago and
yeah.
actually acted on something.
you know
And
what?
Lord knows, we're humans. We can't be
You
doing
want
that.
you want to live in a socialist nation? That's just fine, Kacey. Okay.
You want to be living somewhere where people actually think about the future and plan for it and accept costs? What kind of a criminal are you?
Well,
Last time they planted a tree is 30 years ago.
before we go too
Or
far,
today.
please let me introduce the only panelist in the official uniform of the show, my friend in Portland, Oregon, and I don't know what the weather's like there, but I hope it's nice, Mr. Patrick Connor.
He's also the northernmost participant today.
This is true. Yes, it's 84 degrees right now and sunny. And much like Kacey, lots of solar coming down, filling up the batteries. In fact, I'm running on sunshine right now. We're off grid during this whole hour. We'll be running off sun and or batteries.
Wow.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
Yes.
I love that. Well, we have some news stories to discuss this week, so let's get this show on the road. I think we're starting with Mr. Kacey Green, and someone's getting some tips on their OnlyFans or whatever that is. So congratulations to whoever you are. I mean, I wish I had thought to monetize that aspect of the show. Kacey, what's going on with General Motors?
So General Motors just managed to secure yet another EV loan from the government.
Speaking of OnlyFans tips,
Right. So they got a $2.5 billion loan. We'll see if they pay it back this time or not. This goes with all of their other loans and grants they've received for EV programs. And that was basically what I wanted to discuss. It's like, man, how can this company that just keep getting all this money to make cars and leading? I thought they led. How come Ford and Tesla don't need it now? And how come VW is not asking for money from the government? And you know, the one that really got me upset about it. I mean, all these other companies have got money from somewhere, but the one that got me was when they got a loan or a grant of the exact amount of their battery recall, of which LG was on the hook for. So your supplier needs to pay for your batteries, but you get a loan or a grant for the same amount. What do you need it for? So I wanted to bring that point of discussion up.
Yeah, this is a good discussion. It's a loan, which is good, which means they will be paying back to the U.S. government, hopefully. And in the past, when these loan programs have been out there, the Department of Energy had one. There was a whole lot of talk of, a cylinder went bankrupt or whatever. But if you look at the program as a whole, the government made money on it. Oh yeah, because the other companies made up for that gap, and it worked out well, and it advanced technology. So I have no problem with that. The grants, on the other hand, when you have a company like GM that pays dividends, pays big executive salaries, and bonuses on top of that, and then they're getting money from the government, and yet they're not going through the proper austerity, that I have a problem with. So at this, because it's a loan, I don't want to throw rocks at it, but there certainly are plenty of times when they deserve that.
Yeah. And also to your point about how we profited from it, not just the monetary profit, like the air got cleaner because they were making Volts and eventually the Cadillac ELR and the Suburban Hybrid, but
right. Well, when it's a Suburban, anything you can do to helps.
right. That
yeah. Go ahead,
loans
Russell.
are good. No. I mean, yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Loans are good. They're better than grants. And in this case, I mean, why does GM need it? Or, certainly it'll be a political football for some people. And for others, it'll be like, who cares? It's a loan. They're going to do something with it and hopefully pay it back.
Yeah, I mean, I'm of two minds. Last I checked, they were making a profit, right? Like
they said they were.
Why are we handing you money again? Yeah. And I want to see some open books, and I want to see how many perks go to people who have no jobs except to be idea men. Because last I checked, idea men are useful, I'm sure, but they don't actually make the product that makes the profit. So I'd like to see what you're giving them. What's their compensation? I want to see some open books before I hand you a loan. Because unfortunately, for too many companies, they get a loan and they go on and they make some things and they do put it towards what it's supposed to be. And then they sort of half pay it back really slowly over time. And then somewhere around like maybe 100 or 500 million paid back of a $2.5 billion loan. Oh, well, let's have some let's grant them forgiveness. And there's a whole lot of other people who I think could use that money instead. Yeah. So I'm not going to sit here and rail about capitalism because I've always said that capitalism is the boogeyman we focus on because the problem is human greed. It would be the same thing under every single system because the problem is always people, and that's why the solution has to be involved people.
Yeah.
Now, so I'm happy that they're making progress on this, to the sense that making these new batteries is important. R&D is expensive. I get it. I'm not so happy because I want a guarantee of payback. I want to know that the money is going to this, and I want to know that GM is where's their share. if I'm giving you a loan, if I buy a house, I'm going to have to put down a certain amount of money to show my commitment. Where's their put down? What's not? So that's my thing. But that's because I'm cynical and suspicious, especially of corporations, and I own that. I'm happy about it.
I gotta
Well,
believe that there's rules and regulations put with these loans. Like, come on, there has to be some learnt ability from the government over time to put some conditions about where the money's spent, how the money's spent, and some rules that are required for them to fulfill before they can get the loan, before they can spend part of the loan. There's got to be some things in place. Like, I've heard other companies don't get involved with the loan because of its restrictive features.
Yeah.
So there is something to this. I have to believe that GM has to follow a number of rules and regulations in order to get the money or get all of the money over a period of the allotted time that they're supposed to get the money. And I believe that there's got to be some sort of audit going on as the loan process continues. So if as long as they're abiding by the rules and again paying back the loan over the allotted period of time, then I'm fine with it.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that comes up for this one is like the last time they did this. This is the first time they did it for batteries. But the last time they did this, they bailed out GM. Tesla got themselves a little bit of a loan. Nissan got a slightly bigger of a loan, and then Ford got a jumbo loan that they have still not paid back to this day. Hopefully, the terms and conditions this time around make sure that GM doesn't try to stiff us.
I think Ford was the only company that did not get a loan.
They got a different loan. They got the one with Tesla. Nissan got a different type, and then GM and Chrysler got
GM and Chrysler are the ones got bailed out. Ford did not accept a loan.
They did. They didn't pay it back. It wasn't the same loan. They got one with Tesla. I can look up the which one it was, but it wasn't paid back as of last year.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, I think that's let's follow up on that and report back on what happened. Yeah, let's do that.
That's the thing.
Thank you, Kacey, for that. Let's go to Mr. Mark Coughlin, who's going to talk about more people buying EVs. No,
it was a $5.9 billion loan in September of 2009. Ford entered with the Department of Energy and borrowed $5.9 billion as part of this loan for projects designed to help vehicles built in the U.S. meet higher mileage requirements and lessen dependence on foreign fuel.
And we know they haven't paid that back.
They didn't deny it when everybody accused them of it recently. Detroit Free Press most recently wrote on it July 29th of 2020. And both Tesla and Nissan have fully repaid their loans as of September 2017. Ford has not.
Yeah, I found the same article. It looks like on the Detroit Free Press.
Detroit Free Press. Okay. Certainly there are lots of issues with government loan programs. Look at the PPP loans that were put out there that lots of companies took. A lot of those loans were forgiven. A lot of those loans went to the companies who then, as soon as the time period was over, laid people off, which they weren't supposed to do because they were getting these loans. They went to stock buybacks. I mean, this is obviously an issue that is fraught with difficulties. The problem is we can't necessarily give people, and corporations are people legally, right? That's what the Supreme Court said, that we can't trust them to always do what they say they're going to do. So, which has to be balanced by, we want to see the government supporting private companies in doing things that will make us a better place to live.
I like clean air.
Yeah.
This show promotes clean air and clean transportation. I think we should get $5.9 billion loan.
I think so too. I agree.
I will promise to use it to make the air cleaner.
Hell, I'm pretty cheap. Give us a $5.9 million loan and then forgive us.
Yeah,
we'll even pay back half of it. Yeah.
Let me undercut Georgia. Give me like 100,000 and I'm good. Okay.
Shut up. That was $5.9 million. We all get $1 million each, and we save because Paul is missing, we give him the 0.9.
Right.
Me? I'm thinking of everybody.
Poor guy loses
That
out on
sounds
100
totally
grand
fair.
just because he didn't show up.
Hmm.
There you go.
But yeah, no. I think it's fair to criticize. I think it's a benefit. It's just that I am highly suspicious. And like I said, I own it because I do see that it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Sometimes it gets paid back, and sometimes, hey, we're still sitting on that payment.
Oh, we went bankrupt. Sorry, we can't afford to pay you back, federal government.
Yeah.
Since we're flogging this not dead horse, let me
Sorry.
also say this. There we're talking about a bill right now that I think will be signed very soon.
Yes.
And everybody's very excited about more EV rebates, more EV tax credits, and that's all well and fine. But honestly, my opinion, I think we're at the stage where we don't need to incentivize people for buying cars that cost over $40, $50, $60, $70, $100,000. I think we need to incentivize people for buying e-bikes and for buying scooters that are electrical. We need to incentivize companies to make cars that are more affordable so that more people can get rid of older ICE vehicles and use electric vehicles.
Well, then you'll
Who
probably
gives-
like the aspects of this new bill that it has caps on the price of the vehicles and it has caps on the incomes of the people that can use it.
And it also is trying to get some lower income folks by working on the used cars. So we're not building all new cars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll of course bring that up later on when I talk about the bill.
Okay. Oh yeah, sorry.
I don't want to steal your thunder.
Thank you
sorry.
for that segue.
Because Mark's got a lot of
But
cool
before
stuff.
we get there, let's talk about this Consumer Reports article
Thank
that
you.
outlines a little bit more than what more added to what we had said last week. Is that more and more Americans would buy an electric vehicle for a future vehicle purchase. So Consumer Reports did a study amongst, at this time, it was over 8,000 U.S. adults. And they posed the question, what do you think of EVs? Is an EV in your future? And why? So they polled this group of 8,000 plus people, and they got an amount of 36% had indicated that their next vehicle is going to be an EV, or that's what they were leaning towards. So it wasn't, it isn't a guarantee that that will actually happen, but based on that poll, which was done in this year, 2022, there was a poll done in 2020. And at that time, the same question, the response was only 14%. So we have a jump in about 22% of people that are now more interested in EVs than they were a couple of years ago. So as we spoke about last week, EVs are ramping up. And this is another piece of data that shows what we have suspected based on waiting times, based on the number of EVs that are starting to hit the market, new models that are available. This is just another piece of the puzzle that shows, in this case, Americans are more and more willing to look at EV as an option for their next vehicle purchase. So good news all around. We also saw this in Europe, how it ramped up. This is, again, these aren't sales figures. These are people telling us that they want to buy an EV or are leaning towards purchasing an EV. But it is heading us in the right direction when it comes to sustainable transportation and cleaner air, as we've already talked about. So this is a good sign, and hopefully, like our story last week about the U.S. finally reaching a 5% plateau of electric vehicles, that this is, again, more information for us heading in the right direction. So good news in the middle of the show. We should have put this at the end of the show. We always end up with a poor story at the end. But this is good news in the middle of the show.
Yes.
Given our pre-show conversation, I'm not going to comment on that. Okay.
So I did a search through the article for polar bears to see if anybody was decided they wanted to hug some polar bears.
Well, actually, Casey, 3 people hugged the polar bear. 2 of them died. So we're not going to talk about that.
But lowered
so-
EV purchase rate by 2% right there.
But those people were delicious, according to the polar bears.
According to the polar bear, yes.
If you want to hug something, hug a tree, not a bear.
right.
Yeah.
Leave
So-
the bears alone.
So after I searched for polar bear, literally I did. I searched for polar. After I searched for polar and found 0 hits, I searched back for environment, and I found 4 hits. 2 of them were saying who paid for the study and mentioning the EPA, but they were all just like we talked about last week. It was and the environment. It was also good for the air. It was all the secondary. Like, this makes me feel good about why I really love it.
Yeah, and that was it for me. I've been advocating EV since 2006, and it's not for environmental reasons. I mean, that's a great benefit. I'm not saying don't do it for that reason, but for me, it was about energy independence. The relationship that our country has with oil taints our government, our relationships with other. It's horrible, and we need to fix that.
Yeah, you'll run out of people with hair knit sweaters if you don't let them focus on what's important to them.
I didn't follow that, but that's okay.
I'm sure
somebody did.
If you only focus on the crunchiest of the granolas, then you're going to run out of customers real quick.
Is that actually a hair shirt reference on what drives this?
It was.
Wow.
See, whenever I say hair knit sweater, I mean a dude who's like literally coated in body fur.
Oh, a bear! Go hug him.
No, thank you. Please keep a
And
shirt
then take
on.
a bath.
I got nothing.
And
I
I
found
don't
a show
want that
title in
visual.
there somewhere. Send some
Yeah.
suggestions in there.
Go hug a
Patrick,
bear.
I'm waiting for you to sort it out because honestly, my brain's just spinning right now.
But Hockey Day, the benefit of us not having to go to war for mineral rights. So it was once we have enough EVs out there and we start recycling them, we can just mine the old packs for minerals. We don't need
Right. It doesn't change one thing for another. There are lots of ways to make batteries, lots of different materials. The materials don't get burned and sent into the atmosphere. They're recyclable. That whole you just changed oil for rare earth material is just a ridiculous it's FUD.
Yeah,
Although it would be a good excuse for them to start another war.
Yeah, we're hearing a
Hopefully
lot of
they don't.
pushback. And let's be clear, you don't have to be a student of history to understand that the United States doesn't need a lot of excuses to go to war. So
He looked at me funny.
let's just own that. Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of the truth. I mean, I think
Mom, she's touching me.
I think this is the first time we haven't been in an active war in years. Like right now.
Yeah. Well, Mark, thank you for that.
We turned your good news into bad news, Mark.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Look, no.
Do what we
The
do
funny
best
thing
here.
is everything we're talking about today is actually all good news
Good
at
news.
its core.
Yes.
Yes, there's some bad things, but you know what? Hey, guess what? There's bugs in your cocoa mix too. And just call it protein and move on. This is what happens.
Thanks for
Life
pointing that out.
is full of balance.
If you were enjoying your cornflakes, well,
There's probably some
got
bugs
some
in there.
evils with you.
Protein? There's
Yes.
bugs in your food.
Yeah, they
Hey.
have to have fewer than however many
Yeah,
thousand
bug
insect
parts.
per ton.
Yeah, like up to 2% is acceptable or whatever. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, it's like
Really
call
high.
it some natural, sustainable protein and enjoy your damn food. And that's what
There
we're
you go.
doing right here. This is some natural, sustainable bad news that goes in with a metric ton of good news.
Welcome to What Drives Us.
That's our show motto right there.
Exactly.
That's what
We are the acceptable amount of rat feces in your cereal.
your sustainable cereal.
No, is that not a good? Is that because honestly, as a marketing person, Mark's shaking his head. He doesn't think
That's
that's
nothing
good.
to hang your hat on, trust me.
Damn it!
What he said, the acceptable amount. Come on.
Right. It's nutrition.
Yeah.
It's secret nutrition.
Yum.
We don't like to talk about.
Well, let's talk about something more pleasant. Patrick has some commentary on electric cars and what they really need.
That is right. So this segues really, that fits in really well with what Mark just covered. So this is coming to us from CNN. It's titled "Electric Cars Don't Need Better Batteries. America Needs Better Charging Networks," and it's by Peter Valdez Depina and Depena. With this is an interesting story, and he has a Mercedes-Benz EQS 450 Plus. This is an EV with 350 miles of range, and he talks about how some new EV owners have range anxiety, and it is something that you have to get to know the vehicle to get through. And he's driving through the Carolinas to Atlanta, and on this drive, he encounters some glitchy chargers. He has to call customer support a couple times, and this does not lend a lot of credibility to the EV infrastructure. And so, what is it that people want when they buy an EV? They want more range and a lower price. Well, those two are not compatible. And what can solve that is if you have a good charging network, then you don't need a 500-mile range EV. The vehicle that I have, it's started with 250 miles of range, and now it's down to 240. And yet I've driven to San Diego and back. I've done drives to the coast and back. And if you have a good charging network, that's easy, especially if you can charge at your destination so that it's ready to go when you come back. We just did a trip to Corvallis, round trip. It was 180 miles maybe, and didn't have to charge at all. So if you have a good charge network, you don't have to have 500 miles range, was my point. But if people are not comfortable and so they want to get a 500-mile range EV, that's going to cost a lot of money. Well, we were just talking about how what we need to do is bring the cost of EVs down so more people can buy them because more people are interested in them. So how do you get to a good charging network? That's the question. And it's not by having a whole bunch of different ones that they all have different fobs and keys and apps and things that you have to tap and you have to call customer service to get it to work. All of these that are being deployed are getting some level of government subsidy, and part of that should include uptime and reliability, as well as monitoring to make sure they're not being blocked. If this is the network that we're going to depend on, it has to be reliable. And when I had a Leaf, I ran into many of these problems. It was a pain. There were often only one spot, and it would sometimes be broken. And so make sure that if you have an EV that you have plug share or a better route planner, as well as whatever in nav system is there, because he was talking about how he found a spot that was not in the in-nav. It didn't list it at all, but he was able to charge there because he had these other apps and he was able to find it. So I just thought this was an interesting article. And often we talk about the vehicles and we don't talk about the charging networks. The charging networks are often overlooked when you're just looking at the vehicle specs. So I thought it would be a good thing to talk about.
So my car doesn't have anywhere near a 300-mile range. Definitely not anymore. It was within 20 miles allegedly when it was new, but we do trips, thousands of miles trips, several times a year. And as I was pointing out on the Tesla Life this week, we didn't actually make it to the point where the car wanted to recharge on this last trip because every of the three people in the car, the bladders kept running out before the charge did. And so the car never actually reached the point where it said, please charge me, because it kept getting boosted. Like of this particular part of the country, all the rest stops, or at least all the rest stops we used anyway, have chargers on board. And to the point that you were making about making sure that the stations are reliable, remember we talked earlier in the year on this show about how one of the large charging networks was reporting how many sessions they had. But then we found through our friend Don Volliker that 42% of the sessions resulted in a tech support phone call. So if they could, report that number next year and then say, hey, now we're down to 35% or 30 or 25% support calls, that would show that they were making improvements in customer service and reliability. And both of those are going to be needed in order to keep spreading this thing to more people who aren't as adventurous.
Right. Yeah, we were talking about the loans and how there should be certain strings attached. It should apply here, and visibility into these things should be part of that deal. Just like you said, they should be able to report uptime. They should be able to report number of sessions and number of customer support calls required to get those sessions. That should all be transparent.
Yeah, and then that's not to say that these other guys that I used actually do have it all down, but their reliability is up. So I don't know if their customer service is any good. I bet you they don't have a phone because their CEO loves ripping phones out. And the amount of stations I've seen that are just not working, I could probably count on one hand. And this isn't the amount either. And even if they are having a malfunctioning setup, the minimum install size is 4 stalls. So if one's broken, I can just move over one. And like you said, with the Leaf, I went to when I was with the Volt and with the Tesla while I was running the Tesla on as an Uber driver, there were a couple of Chatamo stations that only had a single head when I got there. So it's like, if this one doesn't work, in fact, one of them, there was a construction site that just kept turning it off or cutting the lines. They just didn't want it there. And so that one meant I had to go on a nice 30 to 40 minute detour to get a Chatamo charge because superchargers didn't exist in that place till I moved out.
Yes,
Okay.
having more than one is definitely important because they do get blocked, they do break. I took a trip to Longview, Washington in the Leaf, and I had planned where to charge at a dealership. Well, when I got there, the dealership had the gate closed. Yes, and so I couldn't get back there to charge.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so I found somewhere else, and but I made it home with like 5 miles to spare, and that was stressful. Yeah,
Very stressful. I mean, the thing is, reading this article, this is precisely why the Biden administration wants to invest in a nationwide charging network. Because as he states, sorry, I misplaced the fellow's name
Peter.
who wrote the article, Peter, it's like he got to charging deserts where states don't invest in that. I mean, North Carolina, South Carolina, available chargers dropped off. There's a problem there. And that's the thing. That's one of it's a lot like voting rights. If you need something to be consistently applied from coast to coast and north and south of America, then it has to kind of be covered under federal rules, federal regulations, and probably federal control, because that's the point of a centralized government. Yes, Kacey, although it's not school.
So there's an EV charging corridor in South Carolina and in the Northeast. I think it was Massachusetts. It could have been Connecticut or one of the other ones up there. So the difference between the two is on my South Carolina EV charging corridor, there are 0 EV chargers. They had wanted some, but it never happened. And then on the other one in the Northeast, there was one at every rest stop. Some of them were Tesla, some of them were third party, and some of them were literally just the truck hookups for their air conditioner and their cabs. But still, you could charge from it.
Well, here's the thing, and JT24 in the chat says that the Deep South is terrible for charging networks, except for Tesla. And that's the honest to goodness thing that Tesla does right. Tesla committed fully to not just creating the car, but making sure their infrastructure, and in a lot of ways they did the high end level, which I'm surprised BMW did not do, which is create their own charging networks and make it an exclusive thing. You're paying that much for the name and the brand should involve service coast to coast. That's what they did, and that's why it works, and that's what makes them successful in this matter. So, sorry that BMW didn't bother to do that. You kind of may be better at that. But that, again, speaks to my point. You're either able to lay out for a higher-end brand that's willing to put that investment in infrastructure for the charging network, or we have a federal network that works. And, yeah, so... absolutely, big.
A couple of the lower end brands, their excuse was, well, we don't make gas stations. Yeah, so what's your point?
right. Yeah, they're just not thinking it through.
How is that not a valid point, though?
Well, I mean, right now they don't have to make gas stations to make sure their car has a successful cross-country trip.
If you are selling a product, you want your customer to have a good experience with that product.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm not. So, ladies and gentlemen, get your shot glasses ready.
Take a drink.
Look, inarguably, one of the things that Tesla's gotten right is the supercharger network. Without question. Now, whether or not that's making money for them, whether or not in the long run that's going to be a great thing for them, time will tell. But there's no doubt that during the development and the initial deployment of electric vehicles, the supercharger network is one of the biggest strengths. That said, Tesla's set a paradigm that isn't good for us as a society, as a nation. We don't all need 300 to 500 mile long range electric vehicles, and we don't all need charging in all 50 states along all major freeways. Eventually, we will need that. Eventually, or some of us do. Patrick goes on road trips. Kacey constantly going on road trips. Georgia, when was the last road trip you went on?
I take public transportation. I don't bother.
Yeah.
You did just go to Comic-Con.
I did just go to Comic Con.
You did, and she flew. So I guess I think one of the things that I want to be careful about here is that I think we are outliers in the sense that we're very concerned. Our friend John Volker, who I argue with constantly on this issue, is very concerned that the charging network isn't up to it. And it always comes down to, I was in the Hudson River Valley and I had no place to charge, or I was in this place and I had no place to charge. Hey, you know what? Let me just ask you this. If you can't find a charger in South Carolina, who does that really hurt in the long run? There were no gas stations in South Carolina. Who would that hurt?
Them, South Carolina.
Yeah, exactly.
Anybody driving through.
And anybody driving through is going to fill up their tank in Georgia and haul ass to North Carolina.
Or go around.
We're gonna see as much. God forgive me, please. We're going to see market solutions to this charging network issue when there are enough EVs out there to pay for charging. My concern right now is that we don't force everybody into the same template of 300 to 500 mile range EV, supercharge, got to have a big charging network. You know what? I would use that maybe once a year, twice a year. The rest of the time, I would charge at home or I would charge at work. I live in an apartment. I'd love to be able to charge here, let's talk about a program for putting chargers in place for people that don't own a single family residence. That's going to get me interested, much more interested than paying for chargers in Montana or South Carolina or wherever, not to pick on any state at all, in particular.
Yeah, the multifamily situation really needs to be not necessarily resolved, but addressed way more and better than it is. Because just because you share walls with neighbors like I do, doesn't mean you don't have money. And if you don't have money, you need even more help to get around this large country of ours. The other bit of it is for those same companies that were saying, oh, well, we don't build gas stations. Well, here's the thing. You can build a charging network, and then when it's stable, you can spin that crap off, and then now it's not on your books anymore. You're no longer maintaining it. You're not having to worry about whether it's a profit or a loss. Your customers are satisfied, and you're no longer inconvenienced by
it. I mean, Kacey, that's a fair point. I just don't know that it's reasonable to say, hey, if you're a new EV company, you need to build out a charging network.
Yeah, Rivian's doing it. They shouldn't have to. You're right. But at the same time, like you said, they don't have to be 300 and 500 miles. I mean, mine doesn't do that, and I get along just fine. But then you also have the same people who a lot of America, they are a single car. Like this one car has to do everything, including my one furniture hauling once a year. Okay, so if you get a little more reasonable and just do like all of my trips, not necessarily that exceptional time I move, the neighbors, whatever, that still ends up with way more car than you need day to day.
Yeah, Rivian's an interesting one. I like their strategy in that they're not trying to solve 100% of the problem. They're looking at where is the problem not solved that our customers are interested in, and they're
Right.
going to put stuff there. And I don't know how successful it's going to be, but I bet you it's going to have good uptime and maintenance and reliability because they've got skin in the game. They're
Yeah,
not
they
just
actually have
some
employees using the thing, so they
yeah,
know.
their customers are going to be calling them and saying, "Hey, I bought this vehicle. This is part of the promise. You better make this work." They're going to be fixing them.
Yeah, that was
Un-
something
un-
that we brought up earlier. Is that a lot of these traditional companies they've never charged their cars. Like they've even brought the Tesla over and overnighted it and then took it back. They don't understand why the supercharger is better than their solution because they didn't charge any of the cars. They didn't charge their car. They didn't charge the Tesla. They just drove it home, drove it back, and that's not the full customer experience. Whereas with the Rivian and Tesla, they are driving the car, they are charging the car, and they understand that if it's friction, if you get there and 42% of your sessions need a phone call to succeed, that's not what you want to sell.
I think the issue here is capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
I think as Russell has mentioned, that the problem is that it's going to solve itself once
It
there's
will.
a lot of EVs on the road. It's just that the early adopters and the people at the beginning of the curve, they're the ones that are going to suffer. They're the ones that are going to have to understand what their vehicle can and cannot do based on what access it has to charging. And we here all as people that are educated on it or new or are at the beginning of the curve, we know what the vehicles can do and can't do, and what these vehicles, these different brands, what their charging capabilities will allow us to do, and those have worked into our decision as to what vehicle to buy.
Yeah.
Because we know that there are limitations with some manufacturers. We know that sometimes the charging infrastructure that they point us to is not really there. Is not up to what they say it is. So that's something that we've learned through hard knocks, through other people's experience, through blogs and information that we've read. So, but as Russell has said, as EVs grow in popularity, there is going to be more. This recent infrastructure bill that's offering billions of dollars to different makers of EV charging infrastructure. It's going to be part of the solution. As more and more buy the EV, these private companies are going to be willing to step into it a little bit more because they're going to see that there is some profit to be made based on the amount of people that now have these vehicles, based on the amount of the American public that drives the highways and will be stopping at these. In fact, there will be better charging stations than other charging stations. There will be amenities at certain charging stations that are not available at others, and that will allow the public to choose where they want to, and the structure overall will get better. But I think we're at the very beginning of this, and there is going to be some speed bumps along for some manufacturers, and that's what we're seeing today.
Oh, yeah.
And if I may, that's part of my concern is that those of us that have a voice, whether it's this show, whether it's our friend John Volker or other people in the press, don't start, oh God, it's the charging network sucks. You can't buy an EV because the charging network sucks. It's like, that is not a problem that is going to plague most electric vehicle owners the vast majority of the time. It's not, and if that's all we talk about, what's wrong with us?
Yeah, you're right. Most people plug in at home, start every morning out with a full tank, a full charge, and make it throughout all their errands during the day, and then rinse and repeat. So most of the time, it's not about road trips, and you don't need a lot of infrastructure, just an outlet in your garage.
And let's look at it from a resource allocation standpoint. Okay, and I don't want to get in the rare earths are as bad as they're not, and Patrick addressed that. But if we want to get rid of ICE vehicles, can we build more 100-mile EVs or 500-mile EVs? Right, just the amount of batteries.
Yeah, I think, honest to God, though, most people don't go much more than 30 miles a day at most. Here's the thing, addressing the plug and the compatibility issue. Elizabeth Warren took a lot of ribbing for attempts to standardize USB C in legislation, but I can tell you I've got something like 6 different types of USB connectors, and just now everything's kind of going towards USB C.
Finally.
Yeah.
Finally, and still I've got some things that have their own custom USB connection. Shout out to people who understand what it's like to have that Apple issue. Only it's not even Apple. and, uh, and that's the thing. Standardization actually is important. I agree with Russell a lot on that. And maybe we don't need to have a ton of chargers everywhere, but I agree with that. The fact that we don't need to have an elitist charging network. I mean, that's what's happening with Tesla. You're buying in. Like I said, you're buying in with the brand. And we may not need a huge federal network so that other people, but what we need is we need EVs that are affordable. So something in the 35 and under market.
Mhm.
And then we need a standardized plug so that when you go, you're not playing which plug is it? What can I
Right.
connect to?
Yeah, and so I think we all agree that we need to get to an affordable EV. We need to have viable EVs, and I guess my point was that a charging network supports that. Then you don't need a 500-mile EV to get things done. You can
Right.
live with a 100-mile EV, 150-mile EV.
That's fair.
When you do need to take a trip, yeah. And as far as the plug, right now we've pretty much standardized it on. We've got the most deployment out there of the TSLA2 connector, and then we've got the most manufacturers on CCS and CCS2. And even better on the large vehicles, the vehicles that need megawatt, we're actually standardized on megawatt. Right now it's MCS2, and looks like we're going on to make MCS3. So the cool thing there is that you can use your truck, your boat, your semi truck, your ship, your tractor, and they'll all use the same plug worldwide. So you're only making one connector rather than
Yes,
like
that
we have
sounds like-
now.
Yeah, I
With
wish
CCS,
that would
you
have
got
been the
2 for 1.
same with
Go ahead,
EVs.
sorry.
That
Yeah.
we would have worldwide established a standard before they proliferated. That would have
Yeah.
solved so many problems. And we're getting it right for the big vehicles. That's awesome.
Yeah, because the CCS we call them both the same thing, but they're not the same plug. So now you've got a
Correct.
manufacturer who's making 2 different plugs for one car. Whereas if we can kind of just do what we're doing with the heavy vehicles and just do one plug for everything, like literally the same plug, that will help with logistics. That'll help with costs. I mean, every time one of these manufacturers saves themselves 5 cents, you're like, oh, they're squabbling over nickels. But when you make 1,000,000 cars,
Yeah.
that's
It's
5
that
cents.
up.
Yeah, that's
And
real money.
the other aspect of that, and I'm talking on, I'm always talking on the consumer side of things. Look, y'all are wonks. Wonks forget that regular old people, they want to go, they're like me when I go shopping. Look, I don't care. I just want to go in, buy what I need, and come the heck back out. My ex loved to shop, and I used to say to him, I don't understand how this gender swap happened. Because you can have my breasts because obviously you want to wander through a store, and I just want to be like playing a game or watching movies or anywhere else but having to shop. And that's kind of what the consumer attitude is with the car. They are confused a lot about the plug-in issue, the battery issue, all of that stuff. So if we could just narrow it down, but the honest to goodness truth is I would be afraid of letting Tesla set the standard just because it's an elephant. You know what I mean? Something that's generic, but that's me. And if it's technically easier,
Yeah.
go with what's easier.
If they do like we have with seat belts or like Intel did with like we have now with USB-C and the Thunderbolt, if they just like open source it, you don't have to pay us anything, no licensing fee. That would be, I think, the easiest solution if you wanted that connector, because then you don't have to worry about Ford. I'm Ford, and Tesla's going to stab me in the back in 3 years. Well, they can't. They don't know. They own it, but they can't enforce anything with it.
No argument.
Yeah.
Well, finally, let's go to Mr. Patrick Connor, who has a story that won't make
No,
us
nope.
sad.
No,
Hey,
Yes, we're gonna do that next week.
Oh,
That's a
okay.
lot to do in
It-
what,
it-
5 minutes? No, let's go to you. It's not gonna happen.
Okay, what's my? Oh yeah.
I'm sorry,
so
Patrick. I didn't mean to. I
that's
kind of
fine.
dropped that on.
We broke Patrick's
that's-
flow.
That's fine. Yes. So yeah, this is a good news story. So I don't know how long ago it was, 5 or 6 weeks ago on this show, I was ranting about how the Portland Clean Energy Fund had been given a big pile of money, $120 million or whatever it was, and yet they were not doling out the funds because they didn't have what they needed in place to make sure that they knew what criteria they were going to issue it with, and then they were going to track the results with it. And so they were dealing with this administrivia was stopping the progress. And it just seemed to me like, why didn't you have that figured out before you even got the money? So this is to resolve that rant. So now they've got everything that they need in place, and they are greenlighting funds and putting out all of this this money that is helping do good things. Let's see if there's a list in here of where it's going, but it's going to regenerative agriculture, residence homes, energy retrofits, clean energy, a lot of good stuff. A total of 141 organizations submitted 162 applications ranging from 20,000 to 10 million. And out of these, 66 proposals were recommended for a total of $111 million. So, and then it sounds like there's at least one person that has dropped out of this. But anyway, I just wanted to follow up and circle back and say, after I ranted and pounded the table and said, fix this and get it done, they did. There you go.
It's a yay!
Yeah.
One of the things that I've had to tell people is like, look, wins don't happen as a massive thing. You're not going to get massive all at once transformation of everything. Let's take the win and actually celebrate it. It's time to stop poo-pooing it because it's not hitting every single desired point. Progress means progress. Progress does not mean perfection. And I'll take it. I'll take every city that does it and moves forward. I'll take every state that does it and moves forward. I'm going to say something that's going to get somebody pissed off, I'm sure. Look at me. I'm a Black woman. Do you know how I'm able to sit here in an apartment I can pay for with a job, with my own account, paying off my bills because I'm able to manage my credit and everything else? Well, I can even be considering looking at a house and then laughing myself silly and wishing I could actually drink because no, I can't afford a house. I'm in California. But that's called incremental progress. I exist in this state due to incremental progress. It took hundreds of years for it. So please stop poo-pooing incremental progress. We've got to learn to celebrate our wins. Too many times we sit there and we bitch and moan more about what we didn't get than looking at what we did get and how much it's moving us forward. And I'll take the win. This is a great thing, and I'm pretty darn happy that it's moving forward. Go Portland.
Yeah, install some heat pumps. Install some insulation. Some inductive cooktops. These are all small, great steps forward.
3%. Kacey!
What I miss?
No, I'm just looking in the chat. It is show title time, and that's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
And given part of our pre-show discussion, I think we're going to have a pretty wretched show title this week, which pleases me because I tend to gravitate towards the wretched titles. Let's do some shout-outs and go home. I think this was good. I mean, I think we had a lot of good discussions about stuff. It was, and Georgia did have a super big topic to talk about. We're gonna start next week's show with that, and it'll probably be half the show, maybe more. It'll be a lot.
There's a lot for us to talk about. Hey, Mark, you might even have some opinions on your end because Lord knows you're in a safe and sane environment over there in Canada. and you probably have some great views on what it looks like from your end. So it would be pretty cool to have everybody come back with their thoughts and what they like and what they don't like. That would be good.
There you go.
Oh, wait. We should probably let people know. I will be talking about the sustainability parts of the Manchin-Schumer Inflation Act, which, through much fanfare and literally ripping, this was actually Charlie Brown ripping the football from Lucy's kick and putting her flat in the back to get this done. This was an absolute and nobody's really talked about the fact that this was pantsing the GOP in just a massively public and devastating fashion, to the point where they then went out and shot themselves in the foot by not voting for the veteran
Voting against-
PACT Act.
Yeah.
So
Jon Stewart was not happy about that.
and Lord knows the cameras will follow Jon Stewart not being happy, and I guess it helped. So this is a big thing, and we should probably talk about it.
Yeah.
And we will next week. So look forward to that. Let's start with Kacey Green for shout-outs.
Right over here at youtube.com/Kacey Green. That's KACEYGREEN. We have some Sunday discussions similar to this. And eventually I will get back to making a pre-edited video or two and putting them out there on a several times a month schedule. Lord knows I get new cameras and stuff, and I keep recording stuff, but Baby has other ideas about scheduling, and we are
Look,
finally...
She is months old. It is time for her to earn her keep and start editing some video.
Yeah.
Don't just look cute in the videos, baby. So
Yeah.
That's right. Jamaican babies are earning money at this time. Get up.
she's part Jamaican, so she's get with it. But she's finally started sleeping most of the way through the night, so I'm actually not a zombie anymore. So eventually, this will happen again.
More than you ever were, at least.
Right. That part.
I got
Welcome
a million
to the
of
world
them. I got a million of them. Do visit Kacey's YouTube channel and subscribe. Click the bell for notifications. And Kacey, your Sunday chat, are you still doing that?
That's the one I'm talking about.
Okay.
110 every day. Or every Sunday.
Wonderful. Yeah, and I would participate, but of course I'm working a job that day, so watching a live video and doing what I do, not a good combo.
That's so capitalist of you.
Yeah. So.
Well, he doesn't need any vehicular manslaughter charges.
Nah, I don't. Mr. Coughlin.
I'd like to thank everyone for watching the video. If they haven't already, please give us a thumbs up. Give us a subscribe. Help us out. Doesn't cost you a dime, and it helps us, helps the channel, helps us. So please do. Also, you can follow us on all the socials just by looking up What Drives Us. We're there. Just click on What Drives Us, and on any of the socials, you'll come up with us. Feel free to follow. I'd like to give a quick shout out to June C. in the chat.
Yeah.
June looks like she's considering an EV and wanted to get some questions answered, and the panel was able to comply and hopefully has provided her with the information she needs to get the EV that will work in her lifestyle. So
awesome.
Congratulations, and thanks, June, for joining the chat.
Absolutely. And cheers to Derek and Hockey Day and JT for also helping out and offering up opinions there. It's super important. Of course, Kacey's in the chat too. And yeah, you can come in the chat and ask us questions or ask the other people questions, and maybe we'll even help. I don't know. Maybe we'll just make fun of you. Probably not, June. Don't worry. That's other people we'd make fun of, like Hockey Day. Why did I pick on Hockey Day? I don't. Patrick, what's going on in your world, my friend?
Hello. I blog occasionally at carswithcords.net. Over there, you can see that. And as always, I am with the Oregon Electric Vehicle Association. You can find us at oeva.org. Thanks.
That was it. That was wow. Well,
yeah, we're over time. I'm trying to.
Fair
I
enough.
Can throw in. I blog about my future free from fossil fuels if you want.
Do visit Patrick at carswithcords.net.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia, it's up to you. Say something better than what I'm going to babble, please. Not a big challenge.
Impossible. I'd like to thank you guys for joining us. You're in chat, or those of you who are just watching quietly somewhere at home, enjoying us acting out here on the channel. Um, don't forget, hit like, hit subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. And if you've been here for an hour, you might as well subscribe. We pretty much do this every Wednesday, and you obviously like us. So go on ahead and hit like, because that helps us with the algorithm. It tells people that this is a show worth watching. And while you're at it, bounce on over to the Tesla Life, hit like, hit subscribe. Mark's got to have all the Tesla information for you, and he's going to be talking about a lot of changes going on in the upcoming year. And then Kacey's over there on his channel, and he's your guy if you want to talk about Tesla's operating systems, all the new things. If you want to watch him train his car to obviously lead death squads. I mean, that's what Kacey's doing. You know, he's going to help you get in good with our robot overlord. So hit like, hit subscribe, and then bounce on over to Patrick, carswithcords.net. He's our more thoughtful person. He writes stuff. He thinks about things. It's all like educated and stuff. Goes in deep, especially if you want to learn more about solar power and having that zero energy home. In fact, having that net negative home where you're actually rolling back some power and maybe earning some sweet pennies back from the power companies. So thank you for joining us, and while you're at it, I'll see you next week.
Thank you so much, Georgia. As always, I want to thank Michael Mannering for our theme music. Visit him at manthing.com. Buy a song, buy an album, buy something. I want to thank everybody in the chat room once again. June, Derek, JT, Hockey Day. Can we get you know what? Yes. Yes, we will have What Drives Us shirts and stickers and hats and things coming soon. I think I've said that for about 3 years. Patrick, maybe longer?
It's been a while, yeah.
It's been a while. But I actually am working on some designs and getting some things. I just have to find a provider that I can feel good about using. A lot of online print on demand is sort of sleazy. Anyway, so yes, merchandise, and we would love it if you would buy some of our merchandise too, because that money would go to help support the show. And look at us, we need the money, we need the support. We're a sad, bedraggled remnant of what we once were.
Wait, speak for yourself.
Okay, except for Georgia. Georgia's the whole package. She's perfection.
I'm sorry.
Not
not joining that.
to buy a California house, and then she's all on board.
There we go. Yeah, the bedraggled renter.
Hey, government, if you again 5.9 million, call me.
Yeah,
work that one out.
There you go. Georgia needs that grant. Hey, and as always, we do the show for all of you who watch or listen. Thanks so much for checking us out this week. Download us next week and find out what drives us. Well done, Kacey.
Stay safe, everyone.
See you next week, everybody. Thank you.
That's negative.